After 3 years with my fiancée 24F, she's got me paying for her whole family, and I'm starting to wonder if it's going too far, or if I'm slowly losing control over my own fiancée in this relationship. Hey Reddit, I've been with my fiancée for 3 years now, and she's honestly been amazing in a lot of ways. We have great chemistry, shared goals, and for the most part, she's been super supportive and loving. The only major issue that started to really weigh on me is her family, and more specifically, the fact that I feel like I'm financing her whole family at this point. For some context, I 26M grew up in a pretty stable home. My family wasn't rich by any means, but my parents were good with their money, and they taught me the importance of saving, budgeting, and setting boundaries with finances. On the other hand, my fiancée 24F has a more complicated background. Her family has struggled financially for as long as she can remember, and while I totally sympathize, it's like there's a revolving door of requests for money, favors, and support, requests that often end up falling on me. It started out small. When we moved in together, her mom needed help with a car repair, and she asked if we could contribute a bit to help her out. I figured, sure, it's a one-time thing, and her family is going through a rough patch. But then there was a medical bill for her dad, rent help for her sister, school fees for her younger brother, and it all started piling up. I didn't notice at first, but looking back, it feels like every few weeks, there's another reason to send money to her family. And I'm the one doing it. At first, I thought maybe my fiancée just felt responsible as the financially stable one in her family, so I tried to support her the best I could. But now, it's reached a point where I'm starting to feel more like a wallet than a fiancée. And every time I bring it up, she says things like, they don't have anyone else or we're just helping them out temporarily. But this temporary help has been going on for 3 years. Update. So I finally did something I probably should have done a while ago. I went through my bank statements and calculated exactly how much I've given to her family over the past year. The total was way more than I expected. We're talking thousands, enough that I could have made a serious dent in my student loans or even taken us on a really nice vacation. Seeing that number made it all hit home just how much this has been affecting me financially. After I shared this with my fiancée, she seemed surprised but didn't really see the issue. She kept saying things like, you know they need it and family comes first. I get where she's coming from, and I want to be supportive, but I didn't sign up to be a financial lifeline for her entire family. I tried to explain that it's starting to feel unfair to me, especially since I'm not just paying for one-off emergencies, I'm covering a lot of their day-to-day expenses. She suggested we just talk about each request as it comes, but that doesn't really solve the root of the issue. I still feel like I'm expected to say yes to everything, or else I'm the bad guy who's not supporting her family. This conversation honestly didn't go as well as I'd hoped, and I'm left feeling more frustrated and a bit more isolated. I want to be there for her, but at what cost? Another update. Her family now expects me to help. After the last conversation, I tried to set some limits, but that's been easier said than done. Her mom recently called me directly to ask if I could cover her utility bills. I was polite but told her I couldn't keep supporting these expenses on top of our own. She seemed a bit taken aback, almost as if it hadn't occurred to her that I could say no. My fiancée was upset that I turned her mom down, saying that I was making her look bad and that it was embarrassing for her to go back to her family with a no. The thing that shocked me was hearing her say that her family has come to rely on us because we always help. I realized that it's not just my fiancée who has these expectations, it's her entire family. I feel like I've been unknowingly backed into a corner where they see me as someone who's willing to cover anything, no questions asked. It's honestly a huge wake-up call. To try to make things better, I suggested we create a budget just for helping her family, with a set limit on how much we're willing to give every month. I hope this would make her see that there's a need to control the flow of money, but she immediately got defensive and said that putting a cap on family help was disrespectful and made her feel ashamed. I didn't expect that reaction, and it made me realize just how deeply embedded this financial dependency has become in our relationship. Final update. Had a hard talk and set boundaries. At this point, I was starting to feel like something had to change. So, after another round of back and forth about her family's most recent request, I decided it was time to put everything on the table. I told her I didn't mind helping in emergencies, but I couldn't keep sacrificing my own financial goals and stability for her family's everyday needs. I explained that if this was going to work between us, we needed to start putting our relationship and future first. She was quiet for a long time, and I could tell she hadn't really looked at it from my perspective before. It turns out she feels incredibly guilty that she's financially stable while her family struggles, and in her mind, helping them was a way to make up for that. She finally admitted that she hadn't thought about how much it might be affecting me and even apologized for putting me in such a tough spot. This was the first time she actually acknowledged my feelings about all of this, and it felt like a huge relief to know that she understood. We finally agreed to set a specific amount each month that we're both comfortable contributing, but anything beyond that will need to be discussed together and only be given if it won't strain us. I made it clear that I want to help, but I also want us to save for our future together and not feel like we're living paycheck to fund someone else's life. She agreed, and while I think this will be a big adjustment for her, it feels like we're on the same page for the first time in a long while. After setting boundaries, I'm realizing the impact this has had on my own family and friendships. As I've been processing all of this, I've started to realize that my financial support for her family hasn't just affected my own wallet, it's impacted my relationships with my own family and friends as well. Over the past few years, I've had to skip out on trips, gatherings, and even my siblings' milestones because I simply couldn't afford it. My friends have commented on how I always seem strapped for cash or too busy whenever they try to plan something, and while they don't know the full story, I know it's become noticeable. I had to make excuses and feel guilty, knowing that the real reason I couldn't participate was because a significant part of my income was tied up in obligations I didn't choose. It's tough because I feel a responsibility to the family I'm trying to build with my fiancée, but I also miss the parts of my life that I feel I've had to put on hold to make that happen. This whole situation has left me feeling like I've been torn between two worlds, and I'm hopeful that with these new boundaries, I can start to rebuild some balance in my life and reconnect with the people who mean a lot to me. Final thoughts. Honestly, I'm still not entirely sure how this will play out in the long term, but setting these boundaries feels like a big step forward. I love my fiancée, and I want to be with her, but I'm no longer willing to compromise my own financial security for her family's sake. We've decided to take it month by month and see how it goes, and I'm hopeful that with time, her family will learn to respect the limits we're setting. For anyone out there who's dealing with a similar situation, my advice is this: don't be afraid to stand up for your own financial health. It's easy to feel like you're selfish for saying no, but setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad partner, it makes you a responsible one. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'd love to hear any advice or stories from people who've been through something similar.